Check out Kayfabe Cave. We are a destination for wrestling fans. Come see our museum area featuring ring-worn memorabilia and collectibles. We carry figures, cards, belts, and much more. We take pride in bringing you the rarest and most unique meet and greet opportunities. Please follow us on social media at Kayfabe Cave. Remember, keep it kayfabe.
The most exciting half hour in professional wrestling. It's Ozark Mountain Wrestling with the country's greatest wrestling stars, like the Glamour Boys, the Spiders, Cactus Jack, and the North American wrestling champ, the Colorado Kid. So get ready for all the hard-hitting, high-flying, drop-kicking action of Ozark Mountain Wrestling.
Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, and welcome to another episode of Retro Wrestling. And this one's going to be a special episode, as it's going to be a deep dive episode. We're heading back to 1995 to relive the rise and eventual fall of Bert Prentice's Ozark Mountain Wrestling in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And with that being said, if you're going to talk about something that happened in Jonesboro, Arkansas, who better to join me for this episode than the owner, founder, and president of STSPOD.club, and, of course, the new king of Jonesboro, an authority, if you will, BT, Brian Trammell. What's up?
I'm holding up my cape.
Yeah, you got to hold that around you the entire show.
Look at that fucking mark. Look at Mark on John Cena mark over here.
Well,
yeah, Jonesboro, Arkansas, and I'm just fired up about it. I told you right before we started that I was right in the mix of this. Huge fan of this promotion, mainly because I think it kind of fired me up because Jerry Lawler had, before all this happened, we had a little spat where he tried to beat me up in the dressing room, and then I wrestled a couple matches, and he did that interview that we've got on your feed and my feed about about me. So I was excited about them doing something like this. I believe, if I sat down and thought about this, I originally, when this started, was running my own restaurant, but then before the end of it, like middle of March, and when Cactus came in, I had moved to Jonesboro, and there'll be a reason I mention this, but was running Papa John restaurant. So Papa John's at the time was the number one franchise, not just pizza, but growing franchise of any fast food at the time. And it was so fun to work for. But I was right smack in the middle of Jonesboro and able to go every Monday night to see Bert's new promotion. So,
yeah. So, here they are. And Jonesboro had been USWA turf for years. And here's Bert, basically thumbing his nose at them. And so it's in Bert Prentice's book that he did with Scott Teal. He said in early 94, Jerry Lawler was called back to the WWF after being let go by during all the allegations and charges and
right
all that. All that in Louisville in 93. And so Lawler called Burt and told him he was heading back to the WWF to do TV and they needed someone he trusted to watch his back and protect his interest. And prior to this, Burt had stepped away from the business because, as he described it, things were not good. Burt told the King that he would return to USWA, but he wouldn't wrestle any matches because in his prior run there, they had him wrestling nearly every night, working with Eddie Marlin, Miss Texas, and other people, and he's just getting the shit beat out of him for the most part.
You know what I like about what Burt said? He was just so smart. He was like, I don't want to do that, and I'm horrible at it. He really knew he looked shitty in the ring, and he didn't want to look shitty in the ring. And so he said, hey, I don't want to wrestle. That's one thing I don't want to do. I don't want to wrestle, King. And then and you just said something, you know, nobody up until this point had really run opposition since Goulas, Jarrett and Goulas. Yeah. So there was a long, now Burt, you'll eventually get to this part, but there was a lot of outlaw shows in the Arkansas area. I went to some, I told you, I always talk about that. When we talk about Memphis wrestling, I'll say, yeah, I saw that guy on the outlaw show. But Burt is so smart when he starts his promotion by getting all these outlaw guys to join up.
Yeah. So before we get there, Burt had said he was willing to do a match if an angle called for it, but he was a manager. He had no desire to be a full-time wrestler. And there is money to be made if you build an angle and then a manager ends up in a match. He don't need to look good. He's just getting his ass beat. But when he's getting his ass beat every night on the loop, it doesn't mean anything. So Burt, said he would come back, but he wouldn't be a full-time wrestler. So he comes back, and very shortly after he returns, he says there's this mass walkout in Evansville over horrible payoffs. Eddie Gilbert, the Moondogs, Richard Lee, Axel and Ian Rotten, and the Spiders, who most people will know better as the Headbangers, all quit the USWA after getting their paycheck in Evansville that week. And so Lawler contacts Burt in a panic and said they needed all hands on deck, and said he would let him handpick anyone he wanted to work with if he would help him out and start an angle that Saturday on television. He could write his own angle. So Burt reluctantly agreed. He set out to contact a young man he knew named Mike Rapata, a.k.a. the Colorado Kid. Now, in 2026, that sounds simple, right? Well, I'll call up Mike and I'll get him to come in Saturday. Well, this is 1994. There weren't cell phones. Burt's in Memphis. Rapata's in Nashville. So he had to call Rapata's landlord, who then had to try to track Mike down and give him a message, and then have Mike, then try to catch Burt wherever he was at. So long story short, they do eventually get a hold of him. Rapata's at the TV studio on Saturday. And, Burt knew that Mike was green and the matches probably weren't going to be good, but he also said he knew Mike would listen to him and he wouldn't beat the shit out of him every night as others had done in the recent past.
Right. Yeah.
And like you was just saying, Burt knew his limitations, and he knew that, if he kept wrestling every night, it's not good on his body and it's not good on the towns. You're going to kill all his heat. I mean, that's the thing. I was taught as a heel manager, and you were a heel manager for long, DT. I'm curious when I said this to you, but I was told when I first came as a heel manager, like, look, to build your heat, nobody needs to get their hands on you for weeks, if not months. We got to build to that so that when somebody does finally get their hands on you, it means something, and the crowd, finally gets to come back and see what they came for. Because I know a lot of promotions, their heel manager would just get the shit kicked out of them every show. And if you see that heel manager interfering, then getting his comeuppance the same night, you don't need to come back for that. Is that kind of your theory back then?
Yeah. It's twofold. So if me and you are doing, you say, hey, BT, I want you to, and we're going to, I'm just using Boonville, but we're going to Boonville once a month. No, I tell you what, we're going to go 4 times a year. Won't you come be a manager? That if we got a good crowd, I'm going to bump that night. I'm going to do it. But if I'm doing a weekly show and or a monthly show, they're going to see me all the time, then you do have to build for that. I ran around from a girl wrestler for months in Gibson, Tennessee, waiting for the payoff. Yeah. Her to get me. I hit her with a clipboard one month. I did this to her, blah, blah, blah. but when they got me, it meant something. That was kind of Paul Heyman's thought, that you wait, but that was Wizard. The Grand Wizard never bumped, apparently. So Paul was taught that you wait to the last minute before you do it. It's part of the angle. It's part of the heat building up to it. Not the Jimmy Hart way, by the way.
Yeah.
Jimmy got beat up every night in every town. And, we have a good friend, Jimmy Blaylock, who used to do a lot of bumping almost every show that he was at. So it was one of those things where you had to learn.
Yeah.
It wasn't something, it was almost like, why did I blow? Right now, if I went back, I wouldn't blow my damn whistle all the time,
Yeah.
and also the whole thing where, I was taught about middle way through all this stuff, quit going out with so many people. Don't go out with so many people. Go out with one person, and that one person means something. So, I could get paid the same $5 I was going to make, making 7 appearances or making 1. So I started making that 1 appearance. So, but there it is twofold, but it is, you got to wait to, and Bert talks about being so sore because he was not really supposed to be doing this because he wasn't in shape to do it. But you said something about Mike, him trusting Mike. Number one, you got to remember, Bert may not have been a wrestler, but he understood the whole psychology of everything. So he could work in the match and build up for the finish and the crowd go crazy, but he didn't want to bump a lot. And, he'd come to where he was bumping some, and that just, you think about it, trying to get out of bed every morning, and you're working 5 days a week. So
and you've wrestled Miss Texas 5 nights in a row.
Yeah.
And she's just beating you like a drum. So Bert took Lawler up on this, and he wrote up an angle, and they got together. He said they got to a town early, figured out a little 6-minute match, like you were saying, built towards a big bump from Bert to end. And, said it wasn't the greatest match in the world, but he said it wouldn't kill the town. And most importantly, it wouldn't kill him. So they go through the week. It gets a good reaction. Then the following Saturday, Bert says he gets to television. He looks at the booking sheet for the upcoming week, and Mike Rapata is not anywhere on the booking sheet. So he goes to Jerry Jarrett and asks him, and Jarrett told him that he loved everything he did, but starting this week, he wanted Bert to do the exact same thing, but with Doug Basham. Bert said, I have no problem with Basham. This wasn't what I was promised, and it feels like you're switching things up on me, so I'm just going to get out of here. And they're like, no, you can keep doing this with Colorado Kid. So that's what they did. And so the matches went well. He said they went from the mid card up to the semi main event on some of the main event shows, spot shows. He's in the semi main event and mid card on the main shows. So that's pretty good for a manager and a green guy like Mike Rapata.
Sure,
that, So eventually they get sideways with the promotion, as Bert always does. Bert comes and goes. You can follow his career in USWA. He comes in, he goes again. Eventually, with Lawler not around, he ends up leaving. Him and Mike Rapata just leave a spot show one night and say, fuck this, they're out. And so he, I guess, had already had this vision for a promotion in Northeast Arkansas, and with Jonesboro being the anchor town. And so he loads up Mike and heads that way.
I wrote down, I think he started this is a spot promotion.
Yes.
That story of that final night is so shitty for the promotion. Bert hurts his ankle during the match and cuts his match. He calls the match. He says, let's go home. It lasts a half of the amount of time it was supposed to happen, or 3/4. And when he gets his payoff, Eddie Marlin, and all I could think of was total asshole, because he was guaranteed $40. All right. That's sad, but $40. And Eddie gives him 20 because he didn't wrestle the full amount.
Yeah.
Now
he did half a match, so they got half the money.
Yeah, that would have pissed me off. And I think another note about this night that's really funny is how he says we made so much money on the gimmick table, it really didn't matter. So Bert was already seeing that the Colorado Kid was a gimmick moneymaker. People loved getting a photo with him, and apparently, I met Mike a couple of times, just one of the sweetest guys ever, but apparently that was him. That was his shoot.
Yeah.
And when he was at the gimmicks table, taking pictures with people and talking to them, that was him. Mike was the Colorado kid was Mike, and he talked to people and they loved him. He sold a ton of freaking photographs, which it's when they get to Jonesboro, he says he has a connection with Kinko's. No, it was USWA. He has a connection with Memphis Kinko's, making him cheap photos. And I'm thinking to myself, connection cheap. I bet they gave them to him. They like Bert, so they just gave them to him. So that was just pure profit for his book.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, he said his theory was the reason they were trying to swap out Mike for Doug Basham is that the babyface wrestlers were upset with how many Polaroids
that Colorado was doing. Yeah,
Colorado
he was doing tons of those. Yeah.
Yeah, so how shitty is that? But typical wrestling stories, you hear them all the time. It's nothing new. So yeah, he goes over and he's starting up this promotion in Jonesboro. And like you said, there had been outlaw promotions in Arkansas and in Jonesboro. But here's the thing. Bert Prentice isn't a guy who's just going to come start running a show on some random night of the week, hang 4 posters in town, and you don't know he's there.
Right.
I mean, Bert gets to Jonesboro and he does what Bert does. He hits the streets. He's first thing he does, he goes to a television station. He gets a spot on TV for a TV show and figures out a ring. He gets all that stuff situated. Then he hits the streets. He's going in businesses, setting up sponsorships. And man, he is the king of that shit, dude. Like, he was one of the last living old school promoters who he didn't just do it on Facebook. He went out and pounded the fucking pavement, dude. And so you were there at the time. Like, you couldn't be whether you're a wrestling fan or not, you couldn't be in Jonesboro and not know there's this new wrestling show called Ozark Mountain Wrestling, because he's out spreading the word, right?
I explained this to the wife last night. I was like, he took tricks from every carny organization you could, but he would walk into these businesses and, he talks a little bit about it in the book, but he doesn't go through the whole what he done, because at the time the book was written, he was still considered a promoter. So He was still working with, I wondered why he didn't tell what he did, but so I walk in a Bert Prentice and he would do it one or two ways. Hey, we just started a wrestling promotion here in Jonesboro. Later on, we are a wrestling promotion here in Jonesboro. How would you like sponsoring? We'll put your name in the program. If it's a big business, he'd approach it a little bit different. But that little business, what he would do is this is a carnival trick, circus trick. I keep saying carnival, but it's a circus trick. When a circus comes to town, they put these little cardboard dilios in every business, and in that is a ticket for free admission for a child. And Bert did that for his wrestling show. Almost all these little small businesses you walked into, there was Ozark Mountain Wrestling. You get a ticket, the kids get in for free. Now, if you were a business that he thought had money, then here's what he would do. Hey, you give us $1,000. You give us $500. I tell you what, I got television for that whole day on TV. When we air that show, it'll be all brought to you by, Toyota Jonesboro. And what we'll do also is we'll put this little thing here. Everybody, not just kids, anybody can get in free. And it's brought to you by Jonesboro Toyota. And when you walk through the door, if you didn't have one of those tickets, you had to pay. But if you had one of those tickets, which you could get at Jonesboro Toyota, or he was real smart because he put those free tickets everywhere too. Yeah. So the business would look at the gate or look at the people that were in the say there was 500 there. They would think, damn, I spent my money really good. Not that that's not a con. It was just the way it was. Yeah. We would stop at at the time it was a junior food store. When we were coming into town, I was still living in Steele, Missouri. It was about an hour and 50-minute drive to the National Guard Armory. We would stop at a junior food store coming in and you grab some of them tater logs. You got to get a tater log, Gene.
Yeah, you can find them.
And then get our ticket. I mean, we get free. If you look at the TV tapings, almost every TV taping has me, my mom. I love my mama. My first daughter was a baby at the time. My friend Shane and my ex-wife, and we're at front row. And it was promoting wise, it was a great way to do it. Yeah. Because he was going to get a crowd. He was going to get a crowd because, like you said, everybody knew it. A late night TV show, you don't think so many people know, but everybody also, as I said at the early part of it, he got all these local guys. I promoted a show one time in Selmer, Tennessee, had 350 people there, and I think 325 was there to see one guy in the main event. I'm serious. He'd had 3 matches, I think, trained 12 times. I had him do the hot tag, and that crowd went crazy. But he had all these local guys, and their families lived here, and their families here. This kind of reminds me of the current Memphis wrestling where Dustin took all these local guys that never had TV, and he did the same thing that Bert did. All these local guys that never had any Memphis TV because they were outlaws. Mm-hmm. And he said, hey, we're going to have TV, and I'm going to put you on TV. And they was like, oh, wow. You know, that was his first. That's what he started doing first until he started adding people to it. But it was just Bert was the best at promoting shows and selling stuff and being part of the town. He was right smack in the middle and knew everybody. You know, the girl at TV thought it was a great idea, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, and we've called him Carney a million times, but I think the carniness of him worked so good in this. You know, it's a bigger town now than it was, but Jonesboro's a college town. He was on the college campus with the National Guard Armory, right across from the business school. And so, I mean, he almost got like prestige per se because of all the businesses that were working with him, and he had television.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for letting us come into your living rooms this afternoon. You know, for years and years and years, wrestling fans have asked me throughout the arenas, where have all the good television wrestling programs gone? Well, ladies and gentlemen, most of them are dead and gone. But we're going to bring a great wrestling show to you great fans in the Jonesboro wrestling area, every Saturday night at 11:30. Ozark Mountain Wrestling premieres March 4th, Saturday night at 11:30. You can now tune in to this great Channel 8 every Saturday night and see hot wrestling action produced right here in Arkansas, right here in the Ozark Mountain area. Some shows will be live from the ASU Armory. We may take the cameras to Joyner, to Mountain Home, to Hardy, to Wynn, to the great fans over in Mark Tree. We're coming live to your towns and producing live hot wrestling action for you to watch every Saturday night at 11:30. And what I want to bring this show to you today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you a lot of our stars. Some you may not be familiar with, but I guarantee you 6 months from now, they'll be household names and bigger stars than you or they ever dreamed of. Ozark Mountain Wrestling started in August of 1994 and has skyrocketed in just a few short months. We thought we'd be on television in 12 months. Already, we've landed our first television deal and 2 TV stations waiting. We have a proud champion, the North American heavyweight champion, the Colorado Kid, who you're going to meet in just a minute, was the 1994 Rookie of the Year. He is our North American heavyweight champion. We have the top, and I'll put them against anybody, the top wrestling tag team in all of wrestling, the Spiders. They're mean, they're rotten, they're nasty, but they are phenomenal athletes and great athletes, and you can see them live in your hometowns in the coming months. You can see them right here in Jonesboro every Monday night at the ASU Armory. That's right, we have wrestling now every Monday night at the ASU Armory, 7:30. 6 of the best gruesome, rockin' sock'em, old-time, hit 'em hard wrestling action Monday nights at the Jonesboro Armory. Real, hot wrestling. The way it's supposed to be. The way your grandma and granddad grew up with. Wrestling. Wrestling is back. And I promise you, I'm going to bring you the best wrestling you've ever seen every Saturday night right here on Channel 8.
Yeah, and people say carny like that's a bad thing, but in this business, that's not a bad thing. I mean, you had to be a carny to be able to go out and promote and draw and do the things he did. And like you said, that was an old circus thing. And that's why the circus, hired guys like Dundee and Randy Hales and
exactly,
try to get Bo James and different people because they knew those guys understood that mentality. And then like TNA, when they started trying to draw house show business, they started out by sending Bert and like Randy Hales out to go and do this in towns, and it was working. They were actually drawing crowds using this system. It works. And so, for the first time, USWA is paying attention to a quote unquote outlaw show. And Bert was pretty smart in this regard. He ran his shows in Jonesboro on Monday nights.
Oh,
there's no way they can run opposition.
It was
they got
so smart. Yes, yes.
And the only thing, I guess the only issue was when it became time and he started trying to, some of the USWA guys started trying to double shot Memphis and Jonesboro. Well, Lawler and them would put them later in the card to push them out further to get to Jonesboro. And eventually they just make the decree. If you work for Bert, you can't work for us. And
Tommy was one of the first guys that did that. Bert called him and said, they got you in the main event in Memphis. I got you in the main event. So here's something else Bert did. So smart. Taped the TV tapings, but he never showed his main event on television.
Yeah.
You might get a clip, but you had to be there live to see the main event. No main event on television. So he wanted to tape it last, and he wanted people to be there for the rest of the taping. So Rich was in a hard spot where they put him in the main event at both shows. So
yeah, and so eventually he makes the choice. He goes to work for Bert, which tells you, Bert's actually paying these guys better on a quote unquote outlaw show than he is, than they are in Memphis. Which when you hear those payoffs, cut his $40 payoff to $20, which Tommy Rich wasn't making $40, but he wasn't making what people think he was. I can guarantee you. So eventually you see other people, eventually stray in from USWA. And, in my watching some of the old shows and everything, kind of like Heyman did with ECW, where he paints himself as the underdog and he kind of, calls out the bigger promotions. Bert was doing that on television, right?
Yeah. The deal was that Bert always wanted people to think that he was the one that needed it, in the sense that the other promotions didn't need it. He needed it because he was he was just doing Arkansas. But see, that goes also back to the whole promoting and didn't think about this till just this moment. The whole team kind of thing, hometown team. He made Ozark Mountain Wrestling here in Jonesboro a hometown team. So you came and supported it, all because this was Eddie Marlin's town. And then our old buddy Randy Hales becomes a main hater. I mean, just horrible to Bert, telling everybody not to work, calling businesses to say, Bert's going to screw you. Bert don't have the money. And so you have Randy and Eddie Marlin being pretty much, Jarrett wasn't happy, but he didn't do things like that. But Randy and Eddie tried their best to kill the business over here.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. The debut show in Jonesboro, January 23rd, 1995. They're at the Jonesboro Armory. And so roughly 400 people turn out for their debut, which is an impressive crowd because from what I understand, at this point in 95, late 94, USWA wasn't really even drawing much more than that, if that. Do you remember going to them shows around that time? I know you were kind of out of it at the time, but did you hear like what USWA was drawing or what people's opinion of it was?
When you walked in, you had all four sides had chairs. They're set up differently, rings are, and people say, well, that's what, sometimes it's not, but that's the way you did in the National Guard Armory. And he would have 100 chairs on each side, if I remember correctly. So 75 or 100, and almost every time they were packed. There's a couple shows where he talks about they didn't have room for anybody.
Yeah.
And they were, people were, I don't know exactly when I started going. But if you pull results from the observers and you're seeing every match and who the winner is and the loser, that's my result. So
Right.
I'm not sure whether I was at the first show. I do know some shows I remember. I was at the big anniversary show, which we'll talk about that, but I was also at all the Cactus Jack shows. We'll talk about that. But I remember Tommy Ritt's show drawing so well, and me being there for that. But yeah, it was, and it was a really a rowdy crowd. Like, what I had done is just got in, into my real life and not really got into wrestling. Wasn't going to do anything in wrestling again, ever. What is this? Yeah. How many years ago? We're still talking about it. So you never leave the wrestling business. But I had got out of it, but I just wanted to go to wrestling. I always was an old-time fan. Went, to Blytheville, Arkansas every time it did, and I was like, man, I just want to start going to wrestling again. And Bert had it going on. He really did.
So you went. We'll get back to this first show here in a minute, but I want to touch on something here too, because we're kind of talking about Bert's, genius of how he promoted. So Bert had a way, like there were times, especially if he's going into new territory or things were down, he could give just straight up free tickets to just everybody, but he had so many different revenue streams at the show. Tell us a little bit about the different things Bert would do to make money once he got you in the door.
He tells a story in the book about some of his first shows were free in the area, and they would he would go around and give all these tickets to people in a town. I think Harrisburg, which is just right down the road from me here in Jonesboro. And he would give all these free tickets every day for 5 days up to the show. Bert's there. He's giving free tickets to everybody. You walk through the door and you don't pay anything. Yeah. Okay, this goes back to hometown, underdog. Poor Bert, he gave us tickets to wrestling. They would buy food for everybody in the family. They would then Bert would run around and do raffles. Did you ever do a Bert raffle? So you buy a little raffle ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And he would do this all night long. He would run around. And so all night long.
Was it the split the pot deal?
Yes. You would, or he would give something away, like a T-shirt or a photo or, Bert was just so good at that. And then we mentioned Colorado Kid photographs. He probably had photographs of everybody on the gimmicks table. That was something, I don't know if Bert learned that from Memphis, from the Coffees, but that was how, Mr. and Mrs. Coffee made their living after they retired, was just from the gimmicks table. They got a certain percentage. And on the gimmicks table, and you bought one of these famous boxes. He had mystery boxes. And, sometimes they would be $10, sometimes $5, but they were just a bunch of stuff that he just threw in it from the gimmicks table that maybe they couldn't sell it, but for $5 you want to get it, kind of thing. Yeah. And then he would do grab bags, and then he'd have just these little I guess I want to call them Dollar Tree toys.
Yes, that's what I was waiting for. Yeah.
So smart. Remember what we talked about when we first got started? Kids in for free. What's he buying? He's buying Dollar Tree toys to put on
light up swords and
and
guns and all kinds of silly shit like that.
Especially if they had the generic wrestlers. That some of the Dollar Tree, he would buy.
That's Micro Potter right there. Why is he black?
He would buy.
There's a mistake at the factory.
He would buy 1,000 of those or whatever. And when I started promoting in the area, I actually stole his idea about all that stuff, especially the sticks that lit up. And they had, I sold those like crazy. I mean, just shitload of them. So yeah, that and the concession stand is something that a lot of the wrestlers or people don't really think that. When I was running the show, and I can't remember the number, and I'm a numbers horse, so I'm going to look at everything. But there was a certain number that everybody walked through the door spent.
Yeah.
And I would at the concession stand. So if I had 500 people there, then I pretty much knew what the concession stand was going to bring, or how many hamburgers I needed, how many sodas I needed. And you could sell a canned soda, especially in the summer in Jonesboro, for $1. Generic. You could get all your sodas at Kroger's and sell them for $1. Big K soda for $1. I did it. Everybody did. So yeah,
and I'm sure he was salting the hell out of the popcorn to sell more soda.
He talks about that. He didn't even do popcorn till Buddy Wayne came and visited him, and Buddy goes, "Man, you're missing out on the popcorn." Buddy was coming to Jonesboro every Monday, and this is corny as fuck, but Buddy, just smart. I mean, he didn't have anything else to do, so he would come to Jonesboro every Monday night, sell popcorn, and give Bert 50% of it. And Bert didn't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
So, and that goes back to salting the hell out of that popcorn so they go get that dollar soda. But Bert was a master at getting people in the building. And then after you got in the building, you were entertained. I had no affiliation whatsoever with Bert. Had a few interactions, and we'll talk about that. But he was a master at getting them in, and then when they got in, they pretty much had a good show, and he knew who to put over. The whole thing with how he talks about Colorado Kid getting over was just a mastermind. I mean, it was he had a guy, Freddie Fargo, and I don't want to get way ahead, but Freddie Fargo had an idea, and he went with it.
Yeah. So the first card, January 23rd, 95, opening match shows to be J.R. Alzado versus Shane Holt. Now, we've seen Alzado on USWA TV a couple of times. What do you know about these two guys?
Not much about either one of them. Shane Holt was, he was a young guy, outlaw guy in this area, and probably just getting his start at this time.
So then you had the Spiders on the card, which, like we said, the future Mosh and Thrasher, the headbangers. I'm not sure which is which, but Spider number 2 wrestled Steve Sexton in the second match. Then third match, Spider number 1 wrestled Colorado Kid. Then you had a mixed tag team grudge match. Tasha Simone teamed up with one of the Spiders to take on Shane Holt, pulling double duty, and Mimi Kennedy in a mixed tag match. And those kind of like mixed tags always got over, on Mississippi, Alabama shows, right?
Mimi ended up being magnificent. Mimi, she worked some shows. That name might be something to someone. Tasha Simone was a friend of mine. I cannot remember how I met her. I think it might have been through her husband, Motley Cruz, which they called Motley Crue in the book. It's Cruz.
Yeah.
But Tasha was, she was tough. She worked hard. She wanted the match to look good. That Shane Holt guy might be part of one of my stories. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look at the results on that. But I think he might have been one of the guys involved in an incident that happened there that one night.
So the main event was what they called a Rumble Royale style battle royal, basically a Royal Rumble, if you will, for the North American Championship. And of course, the first ever North American champion comes out to be the Colorado Kid, Mike Rapata, because that's going to be the centerpiece of the promotion. And, he's already had some exposure on TV through USWA. So it's a smart move because he knows he's not going anywhere. I mean, he can pull in these guys for dates, but he knows Mike's not going anywhere. So, yeah, why wouldn't you build your promotion around him?
True. Yeah,
he got over.
Colorado Kid, if you'll come on in here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a kid you can be proud of, only 22 years old, from Denver, Colorado. He recently wrestled 7 times in one night to win this belt, the North American Heavyweight title belt, our version of our grand champion, the North American Heavyweight title. And Colorado Kid will be on tour all throughout the Ozarks, all throughout Jonesboro, all throughout southern Missouri, defending that belt. And the big news is, this Monday night, the promoters are bringing in who I think is Freddie Fargo's hired gun. And I haven't even told you about Freddie Fargo yet, the maniacal manager, but somehow he has signed a contract for the legendary Cactus Jack. You heard me right. I told you the big stars were coming. Cactus Jack is coming to the Jonesboro Armory this night and try to take this belt away from the Colorado Kid. That's only part of it. The Spiders against the Lightning Express. 6 big matches. It's happening right here in Jonesboro, folks. I know a lot of you didn't even know wrestling was here, but it's here every Monday night, and it's going to be here every Monday night, 7:30, hot wrestling action. Colorado Kid, I want you on the opening to let the people see you. You have a great following already, and I know the girls are out there saying, hey, look at this. We got someone now we can be proud of, and what a proud champion you are.
That's right, Bert. And I appreciate all the help from my fans and my family and friends. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have this right now. And the people get behind me every time I go out there, and they give me the energy that it takes to be the champion that I am. It's been a long, hard road for me to get where I'm going, but I'm still on my way. I'm not to the top yet. I am the top, but I'm knocking them down, too, every day.
And I think it's important to know that you rent an apartment here in Jonesboro. The wrestlers live here in Jonesboro. You come buy a ticket to Ozark Mountain Wrestling. This money isn't going across the border. It's staying here in Arkansas. We live here. This is our home. This is your hometown wrestling federation. Support it. You'll love it. Get into the action. Every Monday night, Jonesboro. Every Wednesday night, we're in Wynn. Every Thursday night, we're in Paragould. We're in Blytheville on Saturdays, some Tuesdays. Ladies and gentlemen, check out Ozark Mountain Wrestling. Right now, we're going to go to a clip from last Monday night down at the Armory. Look what you missed. Come join us this Monday night. Be in the front row for Cactus Jack against the Colorado Kid. And I'll be back to tell you more. But tell your friends, you got a 2-week notice. Wrestling every Saturday night at 11:30.
We'll return after these messages.
Tired of the same boring wrestling podcast? Need something with attitude, chaos, and maybe just a little cussing? That's STSPOD.club, and we got it all covered. We've got wrestling weirdness with WTF News Desk, 5-minute time limit, and the Southern Fried Brain of me, BT, steering the whole ship. We also have rolling into Memphis every week about the current Memphis wrestling. Interviews, hot takes, and wrestling outrageousness so wild it might get you banned in 12 states. That's right, it's STSPOD.club, or search all podcast catchers for Shooting the Shiznit, where wrestling podcasts grow chest hair. Not sure what that meant. Love my mama.
Hey everybody, I'm Gene Jackson, and I want to introduce you to the Retro Wrestling Archive Podcast Network and the great pro wrestling nostalgia podcast we bring, including the Retro Wrestling Review Series covering the USWA, Memphis Power Pro Wrestling, Continental Championship Wrestling, and we've just added World Class Championship Wrestling, and now ECW. Plus great interview shows like Beyond Wrestling with Rob Held, where the stories go beyond the ring. Then there's Dangerous Conversations with the legendary Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich. Plus, don't miss special live streams like Live from the Archive and Arc of an Angle. And the Retro Wrestling Archive Network is growing. We're proud to feature the affiliate shows like STSPOD, The Hang, Classic Pro Wrestling Talk, Get Your Bell Rung, and even more great shows are coming soon. But that's not all. Join the Retro Wrestling Archive Patreon for exclusive bonus content, early podcast releases, special extras, and access to a Google Drive that is absolutely busting at the seams with territory wrestling history, including our legendary Memphis Mega Folder. Podcast, interviews, watch-alongs, live streams, YouTube, Patreon, territory wrestling history. It's all waiting for you at RetroWrestlingArchive.club, where we're preserving pro wrestling history daily. Don't just remember it, relive it.
Always wanted to be in the professional wrestling business? The EPW Wrestling Academy is now enrolling. Visit EPWWrestlingMS.com for all the details on how to make your dreams a reality. Do you have what it takes?
By all accounts, it was a pretty exciting night. Everybody left there happy, looking to come back again, and he's off and running in January of 95. And were you familiar with any of like the local people right offhand that was in early?
Some of them. One guy, Dirty Little Dave, I don't know, he may still do stuff, but he did all the outlaw stuff. He wrestled as him and his tag team partner were called the Undertakers. This was before Undertaker.
Right.
And they were I went to a spot show in Blytheville where I think they could stick 50 people in a building, and it had Sarge O'Reilly there. He was Ralbo. It was his name.
Yeah.
He has that tattoo, by the way.
I remember that.
And Dirty Little Dave and his partner were diving off the top turnbuckle to the floor with headbutts. And I was like, what did I just walk in? I mean, I paid $5 to come watch. And then, Sarge bleeds like a pig. And I'm just like, I had just discovered outlaw wrestling. I had no idea it existed and could not believe what I had just seen. There's some guys that were working. You didn't mention them, but I was become friends with Rick Burton. He was the San Francisco treat around this area. I did not know Man Mountain Mike, but he worked a lot with him. He was not a good wrestler, but he was a big guy in a hillbilly suit and seemed to get over. So,
I mean, just about any time you slap overalls on somebody, name how many wrestlers in overalls were great workers. I mean, usually that was a way to, this guy can't work a lick, but he's got a little charisma. Slap some overalls on him, call him a hillbilly. Nobody expect him to be able to do a damn thing. And
he did. I know it's going to surprise you, but he did the splash for his finisher.
Of course. When I first started training to wrestle, they were like, "Hey, we can call you hillbilly." Like, fuck you.
Fuck you. Yeah.
And then they were like, "Well, you at least got to use the splash." I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that." They were
every fat guy's got to use the splash, by the way.
And I ended up having to use it a few times, but I refused to make it my finish. And Sammy Hall it drove him up the fucking wall.
I used Tim Hansen, who was from the area. I believe they promoted up where somewhere, Tuckerman, Newport, that area where they still promote once a month in Tuckerman. But I think Tim Hansen, his dad and brother promoted in there. Tim ended up going to KEW. He was one of the Littles.
Okay.
It was Biddy and Itty, and one of the small people, was Itty Little. I can't remember, but he was solid. I become friends with him. Rick Burton. The Spiders were, at the time when they first got started, they were the team. They were huge. I mean, just so good at what they did, and you could tell. I didn't know. I don't remember them being in USWA, but they had been running the USWA for a few months before that. I can't remember. I remember some of the names, but I can't remember the Romeo Valentino. I remember him, but I don't remember much about him. And also, I found some results a little bit the next month that I thought was kind of funny, but the Nightmares were there. Did you see that?
Yeah. I don't
think
it
was David Oswald, and I don't know who Rick Glenn was.
I don't either. I've never heard that name. But yeah, Romeo that you mentioned, I worked with him a lot in Corinth. He was usually part of Don Bass's posse heel group there. And it depended on who was announcing him on whether he was Romeo Valentino or Romeo Valentine.
Valentine. Yeah, I was going to say that too. Yeah.
He went back and forth on it, but he was a nice guy. He was kind of just starting out, and he had been here when he got to Corinth, so he was the TV guy.
There was a team called Lightning Express. If I may be wrong about this, but I think one of the guys eventually worked in Osceola all the time as White Lightning, but I might be wrong about that. But they started when they first came in. They had some matches against the Spiders, and so they had two established tag teams going against each other.
Yeah, that's funny when you see like the Lightning Express, the Nightmares, and all this stuff. But I mean, that's another kind of a carny thing to do too, where you take gimmicks people are familiar with and recast them. So it's not, hey, everybody's done it. So let's fast forward a couple of months. We jumped to March 25th, 1995. Ozark Mountain's kind of starting to hit their stride. Yeah, they've been running for 3 months now, 2 months. And he's starting to book some people in. Like on this 25th show, he has a legendary tag team here. He's got Ricky Morton and Tracy Smothers. So, of course, Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express, Tracy Smothers of the Southern Boys. He's been in Continental and Memphis and Smoky Mountain by this point. It's on its way to wrapping up. The only thing, when I saw this result, where do you know where in the timeline this falls with the big fallout between Tracy and Ricky? The wives or girlfriends or whatever got in this big fight, and that's how Ricky ended up out of Smoky Mountain, was because there was
I don't know where this was when it came to Tracy came in first. I do know that. I think, and then Tracy ended up staying here, so that, and Ricky only did a very few shows, so I don't know. Maybe they were fighting during all of this going on.
I don't know. I should have looked that up before we did the show, because I know that was a big to do somewhere in the 94, 95 range. So either this was just after it or right before it, but I don't think this was in the thick of it. But they were taking on the Spiders, so that's if you're in Ozark Mountain at the time, that's a pretty big deal to see the top heel team taking on Ricky Morton and Tracy Smothers.
Sure,
that was buy a ticket to that for
big
sure.
Big match whatsoever. But you said March the 25th, right?
27th.
27th. Now, the week before that, I was there for sure. That was the 20th on a Monday night, and Cactus Jack had beat Colorado Kid to win the title.
Okay. So, yeah, you mentioned this was kind of weird.
Okay.
So, Colorado Kid, North American champion, Cactus Jack beats him for the title, but then he almost immediately leaves to go to Japan or ECW or something. How do they handle that? Because they, the everywhere I was looking, nobody really had a definitive answer on where Colorado Kid won the title back, or if it was just a phantom thing.
No, he comes back in and drops it because so I was introduced to Cactus through Freddie Fargo. Tasha Simone introduced me to Freddie Fargo, and me and Freddie become really good friends. I would talk to him on the phone. Wow, we talked to people on the phone. And then talk to him every time he came to the matches, and he brought Cactus with him and introduced me to Cactus. And I'm like, I'm talking to Cactus, and Freddie tells Cactus, no, Cactus says, hey, I know who you are. And I go, how? He goes, well, you had that little crazy bulletin that was, and my bulletin was the size of a fourth of a size piece of paper. So,
No.
and I had it all together. He goes, "You sold those Ultimate Reuters shirts. You had any of those left?" And I said, "No." I said, "It was a limited edition. There was only like 20 made." He goes, "Man, those were awesome." So me and him made a connection right off. And so Cactus comes in, does this program with, wins the title, and then loses. He loses a couple of times before that too, until he finally wins the belt. And what happened was he was on like 4 shows, and Freddie, I think it was Rector. Freddie wanted me to come to that show and hang out with him and Cactus. So I came to the show and went backstage, and Freddie's like, "Can you do me a favor?" I'm like, "Whatever." He says, "Can you set up my gimmicks table, my Cactus Jack gimmicks tables for me?" I said, "Dude, I didn't come here to run a gimmicks table. I came here I was with my wife to watch wrestling, you know." He's like, "Just set the shirts up." And Cactus was just coming back, or when he lost the belt, he had just come back from Japan. Had his arm was in tape. He had blood. You just hit his arm and the blood start coming out of it. And so I'm at the second row for this show, and I believe it's Cactus in the ring with Colorado Kid, because that's who he was working every night in the main event. And this kid is the whole night is just acting. You know, he was special needs. I had no idea he was special needs. I think I've told you this story before, but this is during this time. And I didn't know he was special needs, but he was carrying on with the heels the whole night. Freddie's at ringside, and Freddie's, getting the heat. And all of a sudden, this kid jumps on Freddie. I mean, he dives on Freddie. Well, hell, Freddie's my friend. I know I'm not supposed to be going across the barrier, but the first thing I did was go over the barrier and jump on this kid and grab him by the arms and get him off Freddie. Yes, He had special needs strength. Just anyone asking. So I get him off Freddie. In all of this, Freddie's glasses get lost. We never found Freddie's glasses. They were real glasses. Wow. And I got this guy holding back. Freddie slides out from his grasp and then starts kicking this kid while I'm holding him. And I'm like, I'm not sure I want to be part of this, and then the dressing room comes out. Kid gets out of the ring. Everybody in the dressing room comes out, and they all kick the kid while I'm holding him. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I get away. Apparently the kid had a knife, and he was going to get him some Freddie now.
Oh, my God.
Because I walked back to the dressing room before he left to tell Freddie I was leaving, and I walked back there, and he gave me this big hug. He's like, "You saved my life." And I said, "I didn't save your life." I said, "I just wasn't going to let the kid, get a hold of you." He said, "No, a kid had a knife. He had a purpose." And I was like, he said, Did you know I can't find my glasses?" And I said, "What?" And my wife looked all over the place for those glasses. And so someone probably stole them that night.
Oh, yeah.
They found them and they kept them. Cactus had thanked me for it. And I think, as we're talking, the night that he lost the belt, I do know this for a fact. The night that Cactus lost the belt to Colorado Kid, he came to, or they were talking about him losing it. They came to Papa John's, and I fed both of them a pizza, and Cactus got everything on his pizza, including anchovies. I always I want everybody to know he wanted.
That's hardcore.
He wanted the works, and we sold very little anchovies on pizzas. Man. So we're talking, and I said, either Freddie had told me they were going to drop the belt back to Colorado Kid, or he just did. And I said, I can't believe you lost the belt to Colorado Kid, even because they just got started. And to me, it wasn't the level of a Cactus Jack going to Japan.
To Japan.
And Cactus taught me a really good lesson that night. He was just like, and I never had thought of it that way, but he was like, the kid's staying. He's going to be here every week. So we're going to put him over. And I said, oh, that's so smart. He goes, I'm gone. It don't matter that I'm gone and I lost. We got to put the kid over. And Bert talks about that in a book, that he feels like that was the major turning point, was that Cactus, because of his interviews and the whole build up and Cactus winning the belt and losing the belt, it meant something. I think the night that Mike had beat Colorado Kid had beat Cactus one night, and the next night he beat Dundee clean in the middle. I mean, I'm talking about he was being put over big time.
Yeah, and for the people who were, newsletter people at the time or were tape traders, 95, you talked about the shape he was in and coming back from Japan. He's having them ungodly matches with Terry Funk over there, becoming a death match legend. And now here's Colorado Kid beating him in Jonesboro. And of course, everybody knows Dundee's reputation. So Bert's doing everything he can to make a star out of this guy. And yeah, what Foley says exactly right. It's always, who's going to be here next week? Not me.
Right.
And I don't, people lose sight of this somewhere along the way, but ultimately, like, wrestling's a work. And if you agree to take a booking, if the guy who is paying you wants you to put somebody over and you accept the booking and you take the money, then you got to put them over, or don't take the booking. It's like, you don't show up and, I'm not doing that shit. It's a fucking work. Like, you don't show up on a movie set and be like, well, wait a minute. If the Indians said they're not putting over this cowboy, no, we're not laying down for John Wayne. Well, they would fire him and get somebody else. They're not going to change the fucking ending of a movie for somebody because, my character wouldn't do that. Yeah. Wrestling's the only place that's a thing.
Right. It is a thing. I wasn't a huge fan of Colorado Kids at the time, and I don't want that to sound like I'm criticizing what he accomplished, because I'm not. I just was,
sir.
Yeah, I just wasn't a huge fan. I saw that he was drawing people. I was more into that stupid work rate bull crap back then.
Yeah.
And so, he was doing exactly what he should have been doing, is getting over. And that's what he did. And Bert got him over by him getting wins over big names, people coming in that everybody knew. Cactus at that time was a dirt sheet legend. He was a legend. Also, anybody that was a fan reading the magazines, he was they put those freaking death match in the magazines. So it was almost underground that Cactus was the man. And to have Colorado Kid beat him after he'd already beat Colorado Kid for the belt and then win it back, it was a big deal. It really was.
Well, Bert knew this would work because, god dang, how did Jerry Lawler become the king? They brought everybody who was anybody to Memphis, and Lawler beat them. And that's how they had all that footage over the years. Here's Lawler beating the Funks and the Briscoes and just on and on and on. I'm sure somebody, like, when they, was getting ready to fly out there, like, hey, what'd you do in Memphis? I put over that Lawler guy. Jesus Christ, Jack, you put over Lawler? Yeah, I did. He's going to be there next week and every week for the next 35 years.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. That was just, I tell, if I'm talking to any of the young guys from Memphis wrestling, it's always one of the last things I always tell them is, don't get in this mindset that you know everything. Yeah. Please. I said, I've learned things in the last 5 to 10 years that, I've been around forever, and I'm going to start still learning shit about things. And that's, it's one of those things where you get that kind of advice, and then you start thinking, if I'm going to bring in when I was promoting, if I'm going to bring in a name, I want my guy to go over, and a lot of little promotions in this area had no idea, just like what Cactus did. They would come in and bring a star, and then, a star heel, a heel guy, and never put their guy over. And the guys would probably have done it. All you had to do is ask them,
Yeah. I always thought, like, if I could go back in time to age 20 knowing all the things I knew when I was 40 and had got into wrestling knowing those things, I still wouldn't have been a good athlete. I still probably wouldn't have accomplished much more than what I did, but I would have had a completely different perspective on things. I would have been a better person in the locker room. I would have, a lot of different things it would have helped with that because I thought I knew everything then. I'm just like, why are they not letting me do this? I know this shit. I could book this better. I could work this better.
Right.
Then you get to your 40s and you really start to understand it. Like, oh, I didn't know shit. I was coming at this completely ignorant. God, man, I wish I had that one to do over.
But I remember not trying to get into the weeds very much, but I had a guy as my champion, and he was just a skinny. He was my friend. He was a skinny. He was a skinny, not a fat. A skinny. Decent, really decent in the ring, worker. He understood it, the psychology. And this guy came in, and his name was Chad Michaels. Woo, that's original. But he looked like $1 million. I mean, and I wouldn't put the belt on him. Now I've had to go back again. I would put the belt as soon as he walked to the door. Here's the belt kind of thing. And the funny thing is I took 5 guys, including Chad, to Motley one night. And before the matches, and we did a tryout, and Motley goes, I want Chad. I go, what about these other 4 guys? They're good. They know what they're doing. I need Chad. And he pushed Chad to the fucking moon in Dyersburg. And I was like, man, you go back and you think about things like that. Yeah. It was so about, that charisma and that look, and that it had nothing to do with work rate. It really did. I mean, you could screw up a match really bad, but still be over. So.
I mean, well, before I say what I'm about to say, I want to say, I told somebody one time, like, if they ever had a Michaels family reunion of all the wrestlers with the name Michaels, it'd be standing room only. But no, what I was going to say is I agree with what you said a few moments ago. Back then, which I only read about Ozark Mountain in magazines and, hearsay. It wasn't until a long time later when I started tape trading, I actually got to see some of it. But I didn't get the Colorado Kid. Like, I was like, what's the appeal here? Like, I don't see it. And then, then he's NWA World Champion, which at a time when being NWA World Champion didn't mean a whole hell of a lot. But to me, it did. I was like, yeah. I put the NWA strap on the Colorado Kid. Like, what am I missing? I went back and was watching his matches. Like, well, there's something I'm not seeing. And I never did see it for a long time.
He was over like crazy in this area. And I didn't get it either. But the girls, he was a good looking guy, in shape, decent shape. The girls freaking loved him. And then, he would, like I said, he was a true gentleman at the gimmicks table and talked to people. And I remember Cody Rhodes going to the Indies and talking about that was one of the hardest things to learn, was to be talking to everybody and selling gimmicks. But that's how he learned that in his very first year at USWA, standing there with the copies and selling all those photographs. He was taking like $125 a night home. That's with the copies getting their 15%, which I'm not a math whiz. I did math in Arkansas, Missouri, but it worked, man. You was talking about I was a kayfabe sheet guy. Everybody knows that. Yeah. And I walked in, and I was, at the time, I had been out of the business. And the first few shows I went to, I did not say anything to Bert because I was a kayfabe sheet guy. I had my run in with Jerry Lawler. He may not like me. I just want to be a fan at the time. And then I was writing articles for Wrestling World magazine, and Wrestling World was paying me like $125 for 5 pages, and it could be photos. That's good money back then. Sure. I'll take it now.
I wouldn't turn it down now.
So I went up to Bert and I put my hand out. He shakes my hand, and I said, hey, my name is, no, I said, I'm doing articles for Wrestling World now, and my name is, he goes, I know who you are. Nice to meet you, honey. Brian Trammell. I've seen you being at the matches, and I appreciate you giving the results today, Meltzer. And I was like, okay, so there we go. That was me and Bert's that was our introduction. That was the first time I ever met Bert, and told him, that me and my family really enjoyed the way he did it, because, I was living paycheck to paycheck, and you're talking me, my friend, my mom. The kid gets in for free, but he charged $8. So that's $32 that it would have cost us to get into the arena, and he was giving that to us for free. So I made sure it was to make a point of it. And like I said, I ended up, you're in the wrestling business, you're in the wrestling business. And I ended up, I think when Tasha started, Tasha was the one that just kept introducing me to some of the different guys. So she was like, this is my buddy BT, blah, blah, blah. I don't think Tasha still likes me, but yeah. It was, I don't even know how to explain it. He was drawing well. He was under the radar. You could draw well and be under the radar, but the way he was doing it was totally different than the way to a certain extent, that other promotions had. There's and I don't know what month that was. He had 17 house shows in 1 month.
Damn.
And think about that. This is an outlaw group. I'm sorry, I'm gonna still call it outlaw group. He got TV. He's using outlaw guys, and he's bringing in quote unquote stars to help the outlaw guys. But total success, total success right there. You haven't mentioned. I'm going to tell you this.
We're at an hour now, so this is obviously part one. We're going to
all right.
We're going to be coming back with a part 2 and maybe a part 3. But I wanted to. That's what I wanted. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, we're going to do a deep dive," and they read off a couple of results, and it's 30 minutes long, and there you go. And I wanted us to get into really your experiences being there, because I think that adds a lot. You've talked about how for you on these Texas shows, it adds a lot to the show with Rob can talk about being at the sport and talk about everything, the experience of it. And that's what I wanted you to bring to this. And you've done a great job of it. So hell, we're only in April. They started in January and we jumped ahead 2 months. So we're going to come back in a couple of weeks with a part 2.
Sounds good. So I'm excited.
We're just going to take our time and go through this, guys, and really break it down for you.
I want to say something before I do my little ending real quick. If I don't have regrets, I really don't. I'm not a man that says, I regret I didn't do this, blah, blah, blah. But, dude, if I would have been smart, I had got out of the business, Bert knew who I was. If I would have dropped the kayfabe sheets, I could have probably worked with Bert at this time.
Yeah.
I had a business. I had Papa John's. I had wrestling ideas, but I had that kayfabe sheet thing attached to me that made talent not want to do it. Now, Freddie Fargo was a friend of Meltzer's too and turned in results and stuff along with me, but I wish that's one of those things where you go back and you just, you throw the kayfabe sheets aside and say, look, I'm going to kayfabe Dave Meltzer. I'll do anything you need me to do. Put up chairs, do the popcorn machine. Come on, man. I could have been part of wrestling. But that's not what I was doing. I was a journalist, I guess. I thought I was. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming, guys. Like Gene said, I like to talk about things, and Gene does too. But me being right smack in the middle of it, it kind of, I hope I explain, something you said earlier. Colorado kid, I didn't get it. It's what you said. No. I got it. I wasn't a huge fan, but I was right here to see how over the guy was. So, and there's a tag team that comes in, and you talk about, if you want to give stars, they were going against the Spiders, and we'll talk about that team. They had some of the best matches that I've ever seen live. I mean, they're probably top 20, easily that I ever saw live. So, and a lot of names. We'll talk about Rip Rogers, Buddy Landell, a friend of mine, Gator McAllister. I don't know if you know that name.
Heard the name. I don't know.
Another
Can't
friend
picture
of
him, but
another friend of mine, Scotty McKeever, was there. Just fun stuff. I got some more stories. I'm gonna shut up right now, so we'll have some more stories. Gene, do you want me to end it? Because I will. End it.
Well, before we do, let's real quick. Surely, if they're watching this show, they're familiar with her. But just in case, tell them a little bit about STSPOD.club and some of the things you got going on over there.
Oh, man. Every Monday, we always put the Power Pro show from the Saturday stream. We put it on it's one of those shared shows that me and Gene do. On Thursdays, I always do one of my, what I say special edition, but kind of like one of my shows, WTF. And we do 5-minute time limit. I put all of those shows on Thursday. And then on Saturday, we always do Rolling into Memphis, and it's just a review show of the current Memphis wrestling. But that's kind of what we're doing right now. We jump into season 3 of USWA. I'm going to do the same thing with season 3 as we do with Power Pro. Just put it up on. When you put it up, I'll put it up. Cool. And we'll kind of share it on both feeds. But just having, the retro part, I never believed in. But I've had such a fun time doing. I do now. I believe. But I have a fun time listening to. You talked about Rob and his experience there. That means a lot. When he says, "You see that window right there?" I started watching the Rumble feed so I could see what window he's talking about.
Right.
So I really think that's a big part of it. And me, I'm a results mark. And so I'll dig up some more results and we'll talk about what was going on, if I know any behind the scenes stuff or anything about that. But this was a fun run. It really was. To me, it ended with the anniversary show in my mind. Yeah. There's a little bit after that, but I thought that was it. So
that was the peak.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, if you want to watch what we're talking about here, you can go to retrowrestlingarchive.club, click on the YouTube link, and I've got the majority of all the Ozark Mountain Wrestling that took place on television is on my YouTube channel. You can just go there, search Ozark Mountain Wrestling, and they're 30-minute episodes. They're not, you could get through probably all of them before we do the next episode in 2 weeks. So there's a challenge for you if you want to check those out. And again, I love having BT here because I've watched those shows, but it's hard to really get a true feel of crowd reactions on 30-year-old grainy VHS copies. You know what I mean? Like, you see people cheering or whatever, but you don't really realize just how over certain things are without somebody who was there and was like, oh, yeah, I was in the building. I felt that shit. Like,
when we talked about Rich coming in, I remember that show and didn't until I started reading about Rich and I mentioned Rich. Just the crowd reaction. That crowd was hot for Ozark Mountain Wrestling. I mean, almost from the start to the finish, because of what I said earlier in this episode. He had such a mix of outlaw guys that brought their wives, their mamas, their best friend at work, and then he had the stars. I'm going to hold this and I'm going to write it down. There's a family that used to come every week. And I'm going to tell a story about that family. So,
and it's that home team mentality you
talked
about.
It really was.
Like Bert's like, hey, this ain't Memphis wrestling coming to visit you once a week or every other week. This is your wrestling right here. This belongs to Jonesboro. And that goes a long way, a lot more than a lot of people realize, I think.
It did. It went a long way with that. And like I said, I tasted it just very little when I would do some of these local shows. I'd put the local guys in the main event. I'm going to talk a story about Reggie Montgomery, who was a wrestler here. And you get local people and you get their families, you can draw, 100, 200 people easily. So no matter where you're wrestling at. So,
well, hey, if you're watching this, if you were in the area, if you watched Ozark Mountain shows, reach out to me and BT, either one. We'll definitely be happy to share that here on the show. Or, if you wrestled there, if you want to come on with us and talk, we'll have you on the show with us. So
I got a few guys I've been reaching out to. I'm kind of excited to see if they, some of the big names that were there that may just, and I've only pitched that I'm going, this is all we're going to talk about. I don't want to, talk about anything but Ozark Mountain. So I'm kind of excited about that because there's some of them that's friends and some of them I don't know. So I'm excited.
Very cool. Well, all right. Well, thank you all for joining us. BT, thank you for coming and sharing with us. We look forward to doing part 2. And for now, that's going to wrap up Retro Wrestling. So I'm Gene Jackson for BT, and BT,
love my mama.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just seen that Tracy. My gosh, they tore the flag.
What hit me? What in the world? I had him beat. I had it going, Bert Prentice, I've been in this sport for 12 years. I've waved the rebel flag, me and Steve Armstrong, since 1987, and I've always waved it proudly. But in all the 12 years, all over the world, wherever I've been, that is the worst beating that I have ever took. Spiders, you're a great team. You're great athletes. There's no doubt about it. But I think that the wild-eyed Southern boy, Tracy Smothers, is a little bit better, man. I know it. And all these people in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and the millions of people that watch the world's fastest rising wrestling promotion, Ozark Mountain Wrestling, saw it. I had you beat, Spiders. These crossed my running lights. They tore up the rebel flag. They can do whatever they want to me. But I've waved it since 1987 in honor of my grandfather who fought in the Civil War. And I've never waved it with anything racial at all. It's a symbol of my Southern heritage. But I'll tell you this. I'm telling all you people out there and the millions of people watching this television right now, I know, I'm a smart man. I know that I can't fight the Spiders 2 against 1 or 3 against 1. But I know this for a fact, and all these people out there know it. There's a whole lot of wild-eyed Southern boys out there. And I'll guarantee you this, next Monday night, right here in Jonesboro, Arkansas, you get a ticket, you go call somebody, because by God, I'm fixing to get me the darndest partner you ever saw, and we are going to kick your ass, Spiders!
Right back here this Monday night, ladies and gentlemen.
This is not going uncalled for. This ain't over, Spiders. We're just getting started.
Okay, let's take a look at this Monday night card. April 17th, big card, ASU Armory, 7:30 bell time. A good opening match this week, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Taylor will meet the Wolfman right there at the ASU Armory this Monday night. Also, Randy Rocket taking on J.R. Alzado with that tramp Tasha in his corner. The Lightning Express will take on Shane Hurt and Slick Rick Burton. Great tag team action. And fans, one I'm looking forward to, I want you to pay close attention to this next match, ladies and gentlemen. Flash Flanagan will be taking on Mike Samples. Now, Mike Samples and I had a big history in Memphis. Samples coming in here. North versus South, ladies and gentlemen. North versus South. Big match here. The Southern boys against the Spiders with Northern Freddie Fargo. Ought to be a barn burner for sure. And the big main event, the North American title match. Colorado Kid defends the North American belt against Nature Boy Buddy Landell. It's all going to happen this Monday night, 7:30 at the ASU Armory. Fans, this card is a spectacular. Get your tickets early and come on down to the ASU Armory this Monday night. If you've never been there, you're not going to want to miss this Monday night. Main event, Colorado Kid versus Nature Boy Buddy Landell. Lots of on-tour action this week, ladies and gentlemen. Paragold, Saturday, April 22nd at Labor Day Park Community Center. All the top stars will be there. Bell time, 8 o'clock. A big chain match this Saturday. Tuesday, May 2nd, returning to Piggott at the Piggott Armory. Colorado Kid, the Spiders, Nature Boy Buddy Landell, and the Southern Boys all coming to Piggott, 7:30 bell time. Friday, I'm excited about this one in Manila at the new Manila Civic Center. First time wrestling's ever been there. Sponsored by the Lions Club. Colorado Kid, the Spiders, Man Mountain Mike, everybody's coming to Manila. And hey, my friend Trey Stafford's, we're coming there to the Loose Caboose Festival in Paragold, Uptown Paragold, by the tracks. All the top stars are going to be there, 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, May 20th. Come on tour with us, ladies and gentlemen.
stack of VHS tapes, dusty old newsletters, plastic men in tiny capes, playing old video games. His basement a shrine to the past, the wrestling's glory days forever last. Retro wrestling nerd, he knows every word, every drop kick, every slam. Retro wrestling nerd, yeah, that's his jam. From Memphis to Japan.